Okay, everybody, good afternoon and welcome. Now, today, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be talking about a matter of high importance. Is Israel's governing coalition on life support? It would seem that the answer would be yes, but as with everything in the State of Israel, it's complicated. And to help us to determine which outcome is likely to come about, we have the great privilege of being able to host two experts from the MirYam Institute. And this conversation, I'm very pleased to tell you, is going to be moderated by MirYam Institute adjunct Zach Shapiro.
Thanks very much, Benjamin. And thank you to our panelists, Danielle and Nachman. I'm very excited for this discussion. I'd like to start us off with just a general kind of top-line overview. I'd like to ask each of you where we are today and how did we get here with regards to the coalition. Danielle, why don't we start with you and then we'll go to Nachman for his take.
Okay, thank you very much. It's a long answer for such a precise question. How did we get to here? Actually, I think that we got here because of ego. There are two politicians that don't get along. We already had 3 elections, time after time. Do you know a country that went to elections 3 times in a row and now maybe is going for 4th elections? The problem is that in Israel, and I think in politics, it's very hard to put your ego aside. And Benny Gantz and Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister, and the prime minister that's supposed to be in November, Benny Gantz, they tried to get along. The reason that they tried to get along was because they didn't want Israel to go for 4th elections and because of the corona. Once COVID-19 came to our lives, it changed the whole map. And then they came together and, gave the country like a united government. But this government doesn't work because they don't agree on things. They don't believe each other. And when you don't believe and you don't agree, it's time. It is only time until you divorce. And this is what is going on right now.
Great. Nachman, what's your take on the situation and how we got here today?
Well, I first of all agree with Danielle. I think there's a matter of personalities, but also there is also a conflict of ideologies as well. I believe so, and between center left and right. The center left is gradually losing its power when it comes to Israel politics. That's a historic process that we have to admit and to deal with. I mean, as an Israelis, and even me as a former politician, and I was a member of a left party of the left side of the Israeli political map. Israel is moving to the right, but still the center and left refuse to accept it. So there's a clash here between maybe the past and the present and even the future, and that's the major point. You can see it in huge demonstrations, now a little bit smaller, every Saturday and night, and actually almost every day. Scores of thousands of Israelis are demonstrating in the streets, mainly from the center left. They want to raise their voice. They don't see themselves well represented in the Knesset, in the major political arena. So they take the political battle to the streets. It's fine in democracy. There's no problem as long as it's done under certain restrictions. I mean, especially these days. But it's a certain way that the center-left parties in Israel feel that they try to take over their share in government again. If they don't do it in politics, they try to do it through demonstrations, through the Supreme Court sometimes, through the media, other channels, but at the end of the day, it comes to one important day, which is election day. And so far in the past 3 elections, it was almost even in a certain slide to the right. And now Netanyahu, I don't know if you're going to discuss it, but now he's done something which is fascinating. He's negotiating with the Arabs, and he's bringing from the Arab list to the Knesset at least 4 members that's supposed to support him in the next election. This is something that no one even imagined We are going to talk about Netanyahu, I guess, soon. But concluding my initial remarks, it's a matter of ideologies, not only of personalities. Something is happening in Israel, and we have to face it.
Well, I'm glad you brought Netanyahu up. Nachman, you've known Bibi Netanyahu for a long time. I'd love to hear your take about what's he thinking right now? What's at the top of his mind? How much is he thinking about the trial in February? And I'd love if you could start with that.
I think the trial is a major factor in any decision Netanyahu has been doing, is making, and in the past few months. There's a set date for the trial. It's February. It's coming soon, and he's doing everything to avoid the trial. Everything he can. If he can do it legally if he can do it through the Knesset, he will. If he can do it through the legal process, he's just tried and failed, he will. He'll do everything he can. He just doesn't want to face the allegations that, according to his indictment. It's not a simple matter for him. I have a lot of appreciation to Netanyahu, I should say. I know him, as you said, for many, many years, and I think he's done great things for Israel. But he has to face this as well as part of his long political career. I wish him all the best. I wish him to get out of it as a free man and to continue his life, wherever he will choose. But he cannot avoid it. That's how I feel. So I think that the trial is in the center. Even if he doesn't say that, if you look at his face, you see the court.
And Danielle, as a reporter who's following all of this so closely, how do you see Netanyahu's strategy and his thinking about all of these things?
I think that Netanyahu wants to be until the end of the world, maybe the prime minister of Israel. He holds it for years, and it will be very, very tough for him to let it go. Of course, Dr. Shai is right, absolutely, that the trial on February is over there. We're talking about it. We know that Netanyahu is fearing from it, and he's trying to do everything just to make it a little bit, to put the noise down out of it. But I'm not sure that this is his only way of thinking, because I really believe that Netanyahu, I think in my opinion that he's a good politician. I think he do it very good and he has achievements, but he wants to stay in this point. And Blue and White Party that Benny Gantz is leading, they always say that Netanyahu only care about Netanyahu and he only wants his chair. Of course, he wants his chair, but I believe that he's doing also good things for Israel. I think that he's a good presenter for us, at the foreign affairs everywhere, because I think that he did the things that he did as a prime minister. I must, in Hebrew, we say that we put our heads down for him. So I believe that he did it, but Netanyahu is tired. You can see it. The trial is moving with him. He gets attacked from a lot of places. Every Saturday night, people are going to the street, right, from most of them from the middle left wing. But I'm sure that it affects him. It really affects him. And as we saw in the US, the coronavirus and how Trump dealt with it wasn't so good, if I might say. Here, people also think about the corona and about the COVID-19 and about their lives. And right now, they think about their lives and about themselves. And every time that people think about their life and not Israel's future, they usually get attached more in Israel to the middle or left wing.
Interesting. So something both of you have really alluded to is Netanyahu's his agility as a politician, his skill, his tactical and strategic abilities. And Nachman, you mentioned the joint list and the recent developments where Netanyahu has been trying to deal with them. So I'd love for both of you to comment a little bit on that, the developments between Netanyahu and Mansour Abbas and the Ram faction of the joint list. Why don't we start with Nachman and then we'll go back to Danielle.
As I said before, thank you. As I said before, Netanyahu is an expert on dividing parties to 2, 3, and 4 parts. It's the antithesis of science. I mean, he's doing it scientifically, but he doesn't build. In this case, he just destroys parties, and he has the record. He did that to Kadima at the time, to the Labor Party, even more than once. And now he's focusing on the Arab joint list. I wish I could separate from other aspects of his government. But if you look at it just as a politician, he's a strategist. He looked around and he said there are 15 Knesset members from the Arab joint list. Why wouldn't they support me? Okay, I mistreated them, which is true. I made terrible allegations against them. I won the elections because I said that the Arabs are coming to vote in masses. But why wouldn't I take advantage of their party or their representation in the Knesset, 15 Knesset members? If I can negotiate with them and reach certain agreements, and they will support me. Listen, the Arabs are hungry for power. I don't blame them. That's the whole secret of politics. You're looking for power, and you also have to report to your constituents. What have you done for them? You come every weekend back home to your village or your city, you meet your people, your voters, and they ask you, what have you done for me this week? What can they tell them that we voted against with the opposition time and again? It produced nothing. They want roads, they want schools, they want water system, they want everything that we Israelis get from the government. So this is the time, and maybe he woke up and said to himself, it doesn't cost me enough. Anyhow, they are entitled to all those services. Let's go forward. And now at least 4 out of the 15 members of the Arab joint list are cooperating with him on political issues. And even in this crucial vote, the day before yesterday in the Knesset, they abstained, which means that they helped the coalition. So he has now done something which I believe is dramatically important. I see beyond the horizon. I would like the Arabs to be active participants in the political arena in Israel. And Bibi, unbelievably, is the one who bringing them into the center of the political arena. Things like that were imaginary, went out of imagination a few months ago. Now we're all watching this scene and we can't believe our eyes.
Danielle, what's your take on this development?
I think that Dr. Shai just did it perfectly. I'll tell you a little bit more. I believe that the Arab list won't be apart. The Arab list from right now is from free flags, right? But they want power, exactly like Dr. Shai said. They want power, and their power is not being apart, being together. So I'm pretty sure that Mahmoud Abbas, that came on with Netanyahu and is cooperating with him, will somehow get punished from this list. But I'm pretty sure they will stay together. Maybe Netanyahu will bring some of them to support him, or bring more voters from Arab voters. That there are a lot. I mean, it will be great for him. But he is thinking about the election, and he wants these voters. I'm unfortunately, I'm not sure that he truly wants the best life. He's thinking about doing roads or school or things that we're dealing with in our lives. I think that he thinks about the voters, and he wants those voters, and that's his tactic.
Well, we've just talked a lot about Netanyahu, obviously, but there's so many more players that I'd like to get to. So, Danielle, you follow Benny Gantz possibly closer than anybody else in the Israeli media. So I'd like to ask you a question about him. Recently he tried to launch this probe into the Netanyahu's purchase of the submarines. Mm-hmm. The Attorney General overruled Gantz and kind of objected to that. What do you think Benny Gantz's endgame was in trying to bring about that inquiry in this timing, knowing that the coalition is already on life support, as we've discussed?
I think that Benny Gantz is pretty embarrassed about all the deal right now, dealing right now with the submarine, because Benny Gantz wants to show himself as a leader, like that he takes care about the Israelis, about the academic. And right now, dealing with the submarines, for him, it's not quite fitting him. But he must do it because Netanyahu is all the time leading, and he's all the time doing whatever he wants with Benny Gantz. And there is people in Israel, they don't believe actually that Benny Gantz can be the leader in November and can take the place of the prime minister. And they're pretty sure that Netanyahu won't give him this rotation. So the submarine investigation is a way of showing Netanyahu, look, I'm strong. I can do it. I can open it. I must tell you that 1.5 years ago, when Benny Gantz came inside the politics, he was asked about the submarines. And then he said on his own voice that there is no need to investigate. So right now, after 1.5 years, is opening again this investigation. This looks a little bit weird.
Nachman, what's your assessment of this?
I disagree with not to disagree with Danielle, but in general, I think that this issue should be investigated. Mm-hmm. The issue of the submarines should be investigated by the highest authority in Israel. Years before Danielle was born, I'm serious. I'm so glad.
34 years ago, it was a lot.
I know. Well, but even before, you know, there was a state of Israel before you were born. Unbelievable.
Right. Unbelievable.
Yeah. But I'm so pleased to have her on. So there was another issue in Israel, another famous parasha, in a kind of affair in Israel's history, called, which actually took place. I don't want to take too much time, but it took place in Cairo in the early 50s, when a group of Jews planted bombs in a number of facilities, some Western owned by the United States and Britain, and the Egyptians exposed this group of Jews. 2 of them were hanged, others were jailed for many, many years. And the question was later why and who gave the order. The question is who gave the order? Who ordered them to provoke a series of terror attacks in Cairo, which the blame will fall on the shoulder of the Egyptian government, but they will not be blamed for that as well. It's quite a complex issue. It took Israel almost 20 years to solve the question, or to answer the question, who gave the order and why, and who authorized them to initiate those terror attacks in Cairo at the time. I believe that similarly, Israel has to find the whole story about the submarines. I'm not saying Israel doesn't need submarines, and maybe it was all justified, and I wish it was all justified, and the IDF and the Navy need those submarines. But let the truth come out, unless it's a matter of security. Out of security, why Netanyahu ordered to purchase the submarines? Why did he let the Egyptians to acquire the same kind of submarines, the German submarines? That information should be should be transparent and shared with the Israeli public.
So I'd like to step back a little bit and look at Gantz's party now, the blue and white party, Kahol Lavan. Clearly Benny Gantz is having a lot of trouble with members in his party. To his right flank, he's got members like Tzvika Hauser and Yoaz Hendel who are pressuring him. He's got other members on kind of to his left within the party and the faction that are giving him trouble and issues politically. So I'd like to kind of ask each of you how you think of the Kahol Lavan party, the blue and white party, is doing right now and what its prospects are going forward if there is an election. Let's start with Danielle and then we'll go back to Nachman.
The answer is that they're doing very bad, very bad. I mean, blue and white party was, the dream for a lot of Israelis. I mean, they will put Netanyahu down. There are great people over there. And they try to do it. But the problem with blue and white party is that they come from a lot of ideological places that are so different. I mean, when we're talking about there are people over there from the left wing, from the middle wing, and from the right wing. Yoaz Hendel and Tzvika Out there right now, their party is Derech Eretz. I mean, they're not included in blue and white, and they're I think that maybe they will go with Bennett, and I'm sure we will discuss it. We'll discuss it later. I'm not sure they will stay with near Benny Gantz. There are two guys, two members of the Knesset that are doing actually amazing things together, and they have, I think that together that they have more power sometimes from all the flag of blue and white. But blue and white is in a problem right now. There's a lot of ministers in this party, and after we will go to election, those elections will happen. I'm not sure if they will happen in February. This I'm not sure, because I know that Netanyahu and Gantz are talking behind the scenes. And today I published in Israel Hayom in the middle of the day that they had a secret meeting in the terminal in Israel, in the airport. So I discovered it. So they're talking. I'm not sure what happened over there, but they're talking, and it's not a done deal. But I believe that the power of blue and white party will not be that power. Eisenkot can come, the mayor of Tel Aviv, Ron Huldai, can come also. It's also a name that we talk about it a lot, of getting inside the politics. And I'm pretty sure that blue and white won't be the same anymore. And a lot of ministers over there will go home or be just member of the Knesset.
And Nachman, where do you see things going for blue and white in the next few months?
Blue and white is not a party. Blue and white is a combination of very good people that came together short time before the election. They have nothing, I wouldn't say nothing, but not too much in between. That's the point. I belong to, I used to be a Knesset member from the Labor Party. We were fighting with each other as well. But we always knew that we have a certain party that we are all members of, with historic roots, with certain ideology, with certain values that we all believed in. That's not the case with blue and white. I keep saying, and it's Yesh Atid as well, these are parties that are born and die every few years. I can give you the whole history if you want, but it will take us a few hours. So I save it from our listeners. They are not parties. They are a bunch of people coming from the best circles of the Israeli society. And they are all goodwill people. They want only the best for the state of Israel, but they have nothing in between, and they cannot function together. And each one is trying to do his best. So Danielle is an athlete, and she can tell you a little bit about sport. Sometimes if it's your own single sport, that's fine. But if you are in a team, you have to play together like a team. Likud, with all the criticism I have on the Likud, they play together. Sometimes I ask how they accept it. I mean, few friends of mine within the Likud, they shut their mouths and they don't say a word. But this is it. If you want to be part of a party, even if you do disagree with your leader, you let him lead. That's the whole idea. Otherwise, it's a chaos. And Yesh Atid and blue and white are not able to run. They are not able to run the state. I have no doubt about it. Just because of that, unless they get together and united and let him run the party and trust him and follow him, even if they disagree. That's what leadership is all about. So to say we'll do our best, or Yeh Beseder in Hebrew, is not it's not a political message. It's not a political message. It's nice to say. You have to know, where are you taking the country? What do you have? Where are you going? And can you do it together? Separately, none of them can do it by himself. They have to get and figure out that they want to build a party, to run it to sustainable party for a long time. And one of the basic rules is that you accept the leadership of the number one. Unless you don't like him or her, replace him. But there should be a leader. And currently there's no leadership. And there are no basic agreements between themselves what and how to do. And that's the major point of the center left nowadays.
So someone whose name has come up that we haven't really discussed is Naftali Bennett and his Yamina party. So I'd like to talk about that a little bit. There are some polls that have come out in the last week that show Yamina possibly getting as many as 20 seats if there are elections. I'd like to hear from each of you if you think these polls are accurate. You know, famously, a lot of the polls are very inaccurate in Israel. So Danielle, how accurate do you think this is as a predictor of how well Yamina could do if there are elections?
I don't believe the polls. I just don't believe them because they're never correct, but they can show a certain way. They can show a certain way. I must tell you that I talked with a lot of young people from the right side of the map, of the political map. And they tell me that they are going to vote for Bennett because they feel that Netanyahu is in the end of the road. He has his trial. He looks tired. I mean, they said he was a great leader, but enough is enough. And Bennett has, he has this brightness that gives those right-wing voters hope for something new, something fresh, something that they can get along with. But I'm not sure they will stay on his side at the day of voting, because Bennett has this record of taking making decisions, like popping them in a second, and sometimes getting afraid out of them, and not like thinking, in the old way of settling things, of doing it in a strategic way. He says what he thinks, but his brightness and the thing that he's young. I mean, he's young, and right now he's not actually fighting with Netanyahu and Gantz. He's trying to get a little bit aside from all this mess, and this is something that gets points for him because he's pretty clean. So right now the surveys are going very good for him. I'm not sure if he will be that successful at the meaning that people will go and vote, put their vote inside. Maybe they will want to go to their base, and Naftali Bennett is something that is more special and not making you confident for a long time.
Nachman, how do you see Bennett's future over the next few months if there are elections? How do you think his party will perform?
I tell you what, historically, Jews believe in miracles, and the Messiah. Miracles and Messiah. You know the Jewish history. So maybe he looks like, for some Israelis, like the new Messiah. Mm-hmm. But the Messiah disappears before the moment of truth. Bennett will never have 20 mandates. And if he gets 10, it will be a great success for him. We all remember that in the past, one of the 3 elections, I don't remember which one, he failed. He didn't even pass the threshold. The second one, he didn't pass the threshold. So how? Well, 400,000 Israelis were born since then. They grew up, and now they can vote. They are eligible to vote, and they vote for him. Well, where did they come from? So mainly, on the one hand, it's a huge disappointment from the way the government has been doing the COVID-19. It's a total failure. We all know that we are moving now toward the third closure. What's going on in this country? It's like in the military service. 2 weeks out and 1 week in. Or the opposite. What's going on here? Why can't we live normal life? Taking all the restrictions upon ourselves, but living normal life. It doesn't work like that. So the public is disappointed of Netanyahu. It gives him very low grades when it comes to the corona management. We should all know that. And at the same time, Bennett was successfully riding on this wave of the corona. He was a defense minister for a while, and then he published a book, and he knows all the secrets. But between us, as long as you are not responsible for these current affairs, you can be a genius. Once you are sitting in this very chair, whoever it is, health minister, prime minister, or defense minister, that's something different. So for many Israelis, they look at him as if he's going to save the country, which is nice. Many of them coming from the center left, which I won't believe that at the end of the day they will vote for him, because he's very much planted and rooted within the right, and even the extreme right. In many cases, he's going more to the right than the Likud itself. Members of Yamina are extreme right, not right. They are wrong, but it's in the right side of the map. So I don't believe, but he will be a player. I believe he will get like 10 Knesset members or 10 mandates in the upcoming elections. He will be probably going with Netanyahu to a certain coalition. Netanyahu will promise him something that he will never give him at the end of the day, as usual, because Netanyahu doesn't believe in meeting his own commitments and promises, but that's something different. But Bennett has no alternative. He will join with the right-wing parties, with the ultra-Orthodox, the Orthodox and Netanyahu, and they will form a coalition together. I cannot imagine that he will go with the center-left and including the Arabs. I don't see it happening, but we'll see how it develops. He's not going to be Israel's next prime minister, for sure.
So Nachman, you served in the Knesset among the many other senior positions you've had in the Israeli government. Thinking about your background in the Knesset, if you were Yair Lapid right now, how would you feel about the possibility of elections coming up? How would you feel about the Yesh Atid's political prospects?
Yesh Atid, is one of those relatively new parties, but they have been around for quite a number of years. And there was always a party in that segment of the political map. They had different names in the past. This was the New Democratic Movement for Change, the Progressive Party, the General Zionist Party. That's a kind of a middle-class party, which had each time, historically, they had between 10 to 15 Knesset mandates. And that his father, Lapid's father, the late Tommy Lapid, was the chair of a very similar party. He had 11 or 12 mandates, and overnight, in the next election, they all disappeared. So it shows you a little bit how it works. But I would say traditionally, there is a room for a party like Lapid's party, like Yesh Atid. Whether they are able to suddenly grab 30 Knesset seats and become the leading party, it's beyond my imagination. I don't see it happening. But they will have they had already 19, they went down to 10. They may get another 15 Knesset members. If they are able to form a coalition, he will be a government minister. I don't see him as a prime minister yet, and maybe never, unless is able to bring in, as he did try, by the way, before the election. What was the story? Yesh Atid and Blue and White, they're all part of the same political party, and they had over 30 Knesset. They had a chance. They missed it. Believe me, you're not giving two chances in the same term or in the same Knesset term. They were given a chance to form a coalition. They failed for many reasons. I don't see that happening again. Lapid by himself is a very talented, skillful, he speaks well, is smart, highly qualified. But whether he will be able to put together 25 or even 30 Knesset members, I don't think so.
Danielle, where do you see things going for Lapid and for Yesh Atid?
Wow, I need to breathe before answering. I'm covering Yesh Atid from day one, 2013. And there's something that I learned from covering them from day one, that Lapid decides everything in the party. I mean, for 8 years, I get phone call every morning from member of the Knesset that they're asking me, Danielle, what is going on with our party? Tell us what Lapid is thinking and where are we going? I mean, this is so weird that member of the Knesset from a Yesh Atid flag doesn't know what is going on in their party. Okay, this is pretty weird. Lapid from day one, he said that he wants to be the prime minister of Israel. I feel that Yesh Atid is they serve this will of Lapid being the prime minister. Of course, that member of the Knesset from his flag, they want him to be the prime minister of Israel. But right now, it's only dreaming for him. Lapid is from day one is in a campaign. He's always like in a campaign. He always sending those exactly same textbooks, and if we're not even when we're dealing with COVID-19 and this big epidemic, he always say that Netanyahu should go home and Israel needs a new leadership. And sometimes there are people that believe in it, and there are people that think that this is pretty annoying. I mean, this country, like other countries, are very suffering from COVID-19, and you talk about your passions and desires to go and be the prime minister and to change and to, bring back Netanyahu home. I think that, but I must say something about Lapid, that exactly like Dr. Shai said, that he's very talented. He knows how to speak. A lot of young people are voting for him because he has this glam. He came from television. He had like, he was in Hebrew we said Amami Leumi is like the national someone that you love, and he really did a big change. I mean, from being the number one TV anchor going for politics, and everyone is fighting with him. I believe that Lapid won't stop until he gets what he wants, but he is very he's feeling very like blamed from Benny Gantz, because once Lapid got together with Benny Gantz for Blue and White Party, the large Blue and White Party, he felt that he was very betrayed by Benny Gantz. So for Lapid going on the political, going up in his political perform, he must combine with Bennett, with Lieberman, with other parties, and he always says that he won't do it until he will be number one. So sometimes you need to give to get. So I'm not really sure what it's going to be, but to be with it, if he will, mix with other flags. And I must tell you something very important and very interesting that happened in a Yesh Atid party. The best friend of Lapid and number two in Yesh Atid a few months ago said that he wants to be the first place. I mean, he wants to replace Lapid. He wants to be the leader of the flag. And Lapid was very shocked. He came on TV. It was Ofer Shelach, member of the Knesset, Ofer Shelach, and he came on TV one day and just said it. And Lapid was shocked. And Ofer Shelach asked him for primaries for leading the flag, and shocked Lapid told us all that he will think about it, and for a few months he is still thinking about it.
So before we pivot to some questions from the audience, I'd like to end with one question for both of you, which is, assuming that Gantz and Netanyahu are not able to get a deal to avoid elections, and we do in fact go to elections, it's relatively clear that the right will do somewhat well. But how badly will it go for the Israeli left? How poorly will the results bode for the Labor Party from Meretz as they're struggling now? Why don't we start with Nachman, and then we'll go to Danielle.
First of all, I'm sure that also, I wanted to say to Danielle that also once in a while members of the Likud would have called her and asked her, what do you think is going to happen in our party? There's not much difference between the way Lapid and Netanyahu run their own parties. Maybe that's the only way. Both of them keep the card very close to their heart, and they don't disclose to anyone what they are planning to do. And in both parties, by the way, the Knesset members follow them. That's why they look like stable parties. Unlike Blue and White, which I just described, with Gantz, that everyone is doing his or her best and they don't trust each other and they just moving different ways. Anyhow, it seems at this stage that the right party, the right-wing party, center-right, will win the upcoming elections if there are elections. I don't see yet who is going to lead the center-left. They're still discussing that between them. the name mentioned by Danielle earlier and by many as another chief of staff, Gadi Eisenkot. By the way, we can produce a new chief of staff only 4 years. I mean, it takes 4 years to produce a new chief of staff, and then they have to stay in what we call a freeze for at least 3 years. In this case, because there were so many election campaigns, Gadi Eisenkot can join in. But there is a limit. And Benjamin, my friend Benjamin Anthony, remembers that when we discussed Gantz at the time and Ashkenazi and Ya'alon and others, I said to them that in order to be a politician, you need to run the same lengths as a military before you got to the senior position. You have to stay in this game for years to learn the ground rules. Then you become either a good athlete or a good politician or a good military. It takes time. You are not born as a politician. Netanyahu, whom I know, as you said personally, I've been following his career for 44 years. When he met me for the first time, he was 26, okay? And I was 28 or something. I mean, I'm older than him. But that's the way it is. He knew at the time he's going to be prime minister, but it took him many years, and he's done everything to prepare himself. It takes time. And the same applies to Gadi Eisenkot, whom I admire, I'm telling you, as a military. But I have no idea whatsoever how will he be as a politician. Can he run the state of Israel? Can he function as a government minister? And what about Knesset member? You have to be Knesset member first. That's the way it is. You cannot be a captain before a lieutenant, and you cannot be a major before you're a captain. That's the way it is. It takes time. You're not born as a prime minister. So, and look how long it took to Biden to become president-elect. So I don't see yet the name, who is going to lead the center-left, and the prospects are low that someone will suddenly take the lead, and everyone, as Danielle said, and Lapid will not give anyone anymore the number one position. No more. He's done it already. So I don't see who is going to lead those parties. And there are difficulties to negotiate between themselves and to figure out how to build a strong party or strong parties to defeat the center-right. So probably 90% it will be a right and center and right parties with the traditional coalition with the Orthodox on the ultra-Orthodox. I'm sorry if I disappoint some of our webinar participants, but that's my projection.
And what's your prediction, Danielle? How do you see things unfolding if we do go to elections?
Wow. I'm pretty sure that there will come a new group. Dr. Shai, of course, talked about Gadi Eisenkot. I am pretty sure that Eisenkot will come inside, and Mayor of Tel Aviv, Ron Huldai, will come inside, and Ofer Shelach will try to get up from second place in Yesh Atid, and maybe there will come a new group of stars that will tell the Israelis that they're the hope, and they will bring Israel to a better place, to the rainbow. And I'm pretty sure that is what is going to happen. Dr. Shai said before something great, that before years, Netanyahu, it took him almost 44 years for being a great politician. And nowadays, I'm young, so I can say it, but I believe that to be an expert in something, you need to learn from the start and to build it on and on and on. I can see exactly like in politics, exactly like in the media, I can see my students, they always ask me, okay, how can I get on TV? How can I do this or that? And I tell them, start from beginning, producing something small in a large media channel, and then, rise yourself up and do it with a lot of ambition and be very good. But here in Israel, in the politics and the elections, it feels like a reality show. like a reality show. But and I must tell you something, the media, we enjoy it. I mean, there are new faces, there are new thoughts, there are new things because they don't have the experience of politicians. It's very interesting because sometimes they fall in interviews and they bring us headlines that are very interesting, and sometimes it feels like the election is the show business in Israel. And let me please tell you something else. 1 year before 1 year, when this government, this weird government came to our life, it was at the beginning of the epidemic. I mean, so getting united, it was something that for me and for a lot of people was dreamy. And people, we were really afraid of another election. And right now, when we live near the COVID-19, we go with our mask all day long, we communicate by Zoom. Elections are not that frightening for us anymore.
So just as a follow-up to both of your predictions, we've got a question here.
3 days. Elections will be held for 3 days because people are going to stand in lines and there'll be no lines. There's no mail system in Israel that can deliver votes like it was done in this country. Mm-hmm. So it should be done in person. And so it will take 3 days. I hope they wouldn't declare 3 days vacation for that purpose as well, because usually the election day is day off. But it will take at least 3 days for all the Israelis to come to the polling ballot, to the polls, to the polling stations, and to vote. At least 3 days. If it's in February, no doubt about it.
And I have a suggestion for those days that if you come and vote, you also get a vaccination for COVID-19 at the same time. So you will go only once outside, and that will.
That's
very efficient. I haven't thought about it.
A good idea for sure. So we've got a follow-up question from one of our guests in the audience. Lisa Wishman asks, if the government falls, do you see any scenarios in which a coalition would be formed without the Haredim? And if so, what would that look like to see a coalition without the Haredim?
There won't be a coalition without the Haredim, but Dr. Shai will answer it better than me.
The Bibi will not let the Haredim out of his coalition. They are the most loyal partners. It cost him. It cost us. It's a matter of money in many cases. And on that, I believe Danielle and me agree that they are paid too much for this plan, and it comes on our account. Mm-hmm. But for Bibi, this is the alliance. He starts counting votes with Likud, ultra-Orthodox and Orthodox, and then he has usually to add another one or two parties. That's how he builds his coalitions. So, and they enjoy the situation now very much because both Blue and White and Likud are trying to get them on their side. So even now they are in a better position. But I believe that in any coalition in the future, the ultra-Orthodox and the Orthodox party will be a part of. They totally depend on the state for their education system, for welfare system, for children allowances. I think something basically should be done about them and the role in the Israeli society, how to fully integrate them into the general society, how to make sure that men will join the work market, not only women, and also in terms of education, that the core studies will be part of their curriculum, because otherwise, if it goes this pace, in 20 or 30 years, 30% of Israel is going to be ultra-Orthodox. Okay, that's fine, as long as they are active members of the Israeli society, of the work market, of the educational system, of everything else. They cannot live separately in their own life and at the same time enjoy the national resources of the state of Israel. So it's time to stop it. But that will not be done in the near future, because, as I said before, politically they are playing the game very smartly, and both parties would like to have them on their side. So they will be. There'll be the flow of money will continue, unfortunately.
So we've got a few minutes left here, so I'd like to go to another question from the audience. Joseph asks, what effect do these repeated elections have on Israel's citizenry in terms of their faith in Israel's political system and their representatives? Let's start with Danielle, and then we can go back to Nachman.
Wow. It's a great question. I'm pretty sad answering it, but of course that when you're going for elections after elections, it feels like a joke on you as a citizen, because those elections, they cost money, and a lot of money, and it takes time to get there. And a lot of things in the country are not working because we don't have, budget, and if things are stuck until after the elections. We sometimes say about things after holidays. So it feels exactly the same thing, that we live like after the elections, but the elections they're in our house all day. So I feel that these elections will be a little bit different if they will come and if they will be close, because we had a time of breathing from the last elections. The circle of the elections was very, very, very hard and very tough, and people didn't believe for like a change, a big change, and they were very upset of going and voting again. But right now we had a little bit of a pause from elections, and maybe this time people will have more motivation to go to vote.
Nachman, what's your take on this, on the effects of these elections?
I think Joseph asked a very important question. Israelis are losing face with politics, with government, even with democracy. They don't trust those institutes any longer. You can see it in many surveys that were conducted in Israel. Politics is done very low down, and politicians as well. And that's a tragedy, because we live in democracy and we trust democracy and we believe this is the best political system. I don't know of a better one. And I agree with many Israelis that don't trust the government. If the government cannot give, for example, personal example, if they cannot serve as an example, if they themselves, as it was shown in many cases, violated the various restrictions that wanted to apply on the Israelis, on every single Israeli was asked not to leave home or to stay in house, and at the same time politicians used to bring family members to spend the holiday with them, or they travel to spend holiday with their family members. That's not a personal example. This is not an example that Israelis can follow. So I'm really very upset about that, because whoever is in power is in power, who she or they were democratically elected, that's fine. But when people lose faith with democracy, they won't trust the outcome of the election, and they won't follow democracy any longer, and they will be looking for other political system may be better for them. I feel like they are abusing the Israeli democracy now. They're taking advantage of their political power, taking the Israelis 4 times in less than 2 years for elections. It's crazy. It's crazy. It costs the country billions of shekels. When 21% of the Israelis are unemployed, when thousands of small businesses are being closed every day, when people are upset, and at this time to play the so-called political game and call for new elections, it's an abuse of democracy, and they shouldn't be surprised if next time in the next survey they will get 0 in terms of public trust or public confidence. That's how the public will relate to them, and that's a tragedy. It's not a personal one; it's a national one. That what is the future of Israel is as a state and as a democratic state.
That's a very pessimistic answer.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm just telling you how I feel. I feel like there's no reason to call for every elections every 6 months. They should close the door, as we say. There is an expression in Israel: close the door, close the window, sit between all of you, and figure out how you get out from here. I'm glad to hear from Danielle that if you saw the picture of the Knesset the day before yesterday, Netanyahu and Gantz were sitting back to back. They were not even able to look at each other's eyes. That's not the way you run the country. If they both say that the country, the state comes first, okay, so that's so it. Israelis are looking at them. 9 million Israelis are looking at the 120 Knesset members to find a solution. The easiest solution is new elections. But you cannot play the game every few months because you are bored or you are not able to make a comparison. We
want them to get along, right? Yeah. We voted for them to get along.
Yes, find a way, find a compromise. Everyone, what's a compromise? What's the secret of politics? Compromise. Everyone is trying to get its best part or portion in the cake, and that's it. But you were elected for 4 years. And now what will happen after 6 months? And all the government ministers, what have they done for 6 or 7 months? They don't know if they have another month to stay in office. They do nothing. They just spend money for nothing. If you don't have at least a foreseeable future in your position, you see the horizon, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, so you can develop some new ideas and implement them. But if you have only few months, what will you do? Just running the show. But it's nothing that will produce no good for the Israelis. And I've been in those positions. I'm telling you, I was a government, I ran a government ministry. I was a Knesset Member. I know what I'm talking about. If you don't have a future, you just play for the present, for the new present. It's different, totally different ball games, totally different.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next few weeks and months, certainly. This concludes our event. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.
Thank you, Zach, and thank you, Dan. Thank you. Toda.
Thank you.
We would be pleased to send a complimentary DVD of this program to anyone who wishes to support JBS with a tax-deductible gift of $36, double chai or more. Simply visit the JBS website at jbstv.org and click on the Donate button to make a donation by PayPal or your credit card. And please indicate the program for which you would like a DVD. Or you can send your tax-deductible check to JBS, Post Office Box 360, Stamford, Connecticut 06904. Or you can call the JBS Pledge Line at 833-MY-JBS-TV. That's 833-695-2788. And again, please remember to indicate which program you would like to receive with our compliments. We thank you for your kind support.